In a moment, our Chief of Counterterrorism is going to give you some details about a brand new initiative we're launching called the Lavender Alliance. It's an enhancement to our incredibly successful NYPD SHIELD network, which is an information-sharing partnership between the public and private sectors that has expanded around the world since its launch in 2014. Now, with the Lavender Alliance, we're using our SHIELD network to specifically address security concerns in our LGBTQ community. And we're working even harder to actively engage with every person our police department serves. Your participation in today's safety briefing is a large part of this. I want to thank you all again for being here, and thank you for everything you do to help make the safest large city in the United States even safer. Together, we'll continue to build and strengthen our partnerships with the LGBT community all across New York City. We'll ensure that everyone in every neighborhood not only is safe, but feels safe too. Thanks again for joining us today, and happy Pride. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the video screens for a presentation titled World Pride Awareness 2019.
In June 2019, New York City will host World Pride, a culturally diverse expression of the quest for equality and liberty of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex people worldwide.
World Pride to me means one big celebration. It's not just a one-day event. It takes place during the entire week and the week after. And what it means to me, it means that I could be equally proud on every other day, and especially that one day.
I am extremely excited to be a member of this department and to be a police officer. And to be able to be a police officer and be transgender and that not be an issue at all. To be honest, I just love it.
World Pride was established to rally the LGBTQI communities on a global level, promoting freedom and human rights.
It started in 2000 and it started in Rome, and it's been in 5 different cities, but this is the first time that World Pride is coming to the United States.
World Pride is a global event, and June will mark the first time it will be hosted on United States soil in its nearly 20-year history. World Pride will be held in conjunction with the Stonewall 15 March, a commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, which is one of the milestones of the LGBTQI movement. The Stonewall 50 March will take place in Manhattan on June 30th. World Pride will be marked in many different ways. There are more than 50 official and partner events offered across the 5 boroughs throughout the month of June, including festivals, parades, and other cultural events. It is estimated that 2 to 3 million domestic and international tourists will be attending World Pride this year, in addition to the roughly 1 million other tourists who are in the city on any given day. The event is unusual because it runs for the entire month of June, and the festivities take place simultaneously at many different locations throughout the city.
World Pride is more than just that march. World Pride is about all these activities that are going to happen the week before and spill into the week after. Different parties and celebration, human rights conferences, different meetings and programs, all throughout Manhattan, throughout Brooklyn, throughout Queens. That's what World Pride is going to be for us, an extra 2 million people in New York City, not just Manhattan, celebrating being LGBTQ.
Members of the service should be aware of these events through June and into early July. New York City is the host for World Pride, and the world will be watching. The events throughout the city should be peaceful. As always, with large-scale events, the department's mission is to maintain order and protect the lives and property of all people. We should also serve as welcoming hosts, treating every person we encounter with friendliness, courtesy, and respect.
We're going to be dealing with people from all different backgrounds, all different cultures, and we're able to talk to people and still get the compliance that we need through discretion.
A smile goes a long way. They might ask for a picture, and just you wearing the uniform can bring a lot. Having a conversation, asking them where they come from, we can show them that, you know what, the NYPD and the city, it's an amazing place, and we want them to come back to New York City.
As New York City welcomes the World Pride celebration this June, the NYPD will be working hard to secure this massive event, while also ensuring the millions of expected attendees feel welcome in our city. Our city has long been the forefront of LGBTQI progress. This event represents the next chapter in that evolution. The challenges the NYPD faced 50 years ago at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village have served to inform our way forward. In 2019, the cops of the NYPD reflect the people we serve. We are fortunate to have individuals across our ranks who identify as LGBTQI. We benefit greatly from our diversity and the close working partnerships it creates with every community. As cops, you have the opportunity every day to be our most prominent ambassadors. You encounter people from all over the world. You greet them, assist them, and most importantly, you keep every one of them safe. There's no department in the world better at doing this than the NYPD. That's why I have no doubt you will make World Pride a peaceful and joyful celebration for everyone. In doing so, you will be supporting the historic progress happening on behalf of LGBTQI rights and all human rights. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to seeing you out there. And always, stay safe.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief of Counterterrorism, Chief James Waters.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. One of the hallmarks of the department's counterterrorism operations is that we protect New York City communities by listening to those communities and involving them in our work. Through honest, upfront communication and a sincere dedication to neighborhood policing, we ensure that New Yorkers always have a way to reach the Counterterrorism Bureau with their questions and concerns. The NYPD SHIELD program facilitates all of this and more. The SHIELD program, which I know many of you here today are already familiar with, is our public-private information sharing partnership that extends to many types of companies and institutions, from finance to technology to cultural institutions and healthcare. SHIELD empowers its members' organizations with information through critical daily alerts, special analysis on terror attacks and major incidents, and a powerful network with frequent in-person gatherings here at police headquarters featuring Homeland Security intelligence experts and national leaders. As Commissioner O'Neill just stated, we are very proud to announce today that we are expanding our SHIELD partnership to empower the LGBTQ community. This new outreach initiative, the Lavender Alliance, will be comprised of LGBTQ community-oriented service providers and like-minded organizations. By joining the Alliance, members will get all of the benefits of the SHIELD program, including access to many resources we provide to all of our members, such as our counterterrorism training and conferences. But the Lavender Alliance will go further and truly empower participating individuals and organizations to protect themselves and their members with resources, training, and networking opportunities specifically tailored to the needs and concerns of the— service-providing community. Our mission is simple: to protect New York City and all people who live, work, and visit here. That means all people. By launching this alliance, we hope it will help the department serve the LGBTQ community in an even more inclusive manner. That is why I encourage all LGBTQ service providers to join the Lavender Alliance. And joining the Lavender Alliance is simple. New organizations that wish to join simply need to check a box on their registration form. If your organization is already a SHIELD member, please contact us and we will assist in enrolling. Members of the Counterterrorism Bureau's SHIELD unit are ready, willing, and able to assist all individuals, organizations, and businesses to help them become part of this important alliance. If you have any questions or want more information, some of the folks from SHIELD are in the back of the room, or you can visit nypdshield.org. As we come together to celebrate Pride throughout the month of June, we recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of members of the LGBTQ community. We support you, and we are here to protect you. But that doesn't end when Pride Month does. You have my word, my promise. The Counterterrorism Bureau, and I know the entire NYPD, is here to serve each and every one of you year-round. Thank you.
And thank you, Chief Waters. I would now like to introduce Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism, John Miller, and the Deputy Director of Intelligence and Analysis, Ravi Sakalami, for an intelligence briefing.
Thanks, and good morning. So, the Intelligence Bureau and the Counterterrorism Bureau are part of the team that stitches together that protective net around New York City for major events. The Intelligence Bureau starts out with intelligence. What do we know? Goes to analysis. What does it mean? Goes to the third piece, which is prevention. How do we take the power of intelligence information and the analysis and use that to stop the event before it happens? That means since 9/11, while New York has statistically been the top target for terrorism, we've prevented in excess of 30 different plots, either coming out of New York or targeting New York from other places. The Counterterrorism Bureau starts right where intelligence leaves off. They start with prevention, preparedness, meaning do we have the right equipment, do we have the right people, do we have the right response plans, have we tested it, have we retrained it, and then response, which is if it happens, do we have the pieces in place? Are we ready to go? Will we have rapid deployment and effective tactics in a way to minimize the damage, the danger, any loss of life? So you're going to see a lot of that as we go into the events that follow, and especially the parade. You know, I've been going to this event since I was a young reporter, when I was here in the police department the first time 25 years ago, and every year since since I've been back. And you know, for a long time it was a medium. You know, we have lows, we have mediums, we have high. Why was it a medium? Because it was a regular event. It drew big crowds. Anything in New York, because of New York's profile as a terrorist target, that brings large crowds together in one place or along one route is a potential threat for terrorism. So we have a complex terrorism overlay we add to any of those events. Figure from the New York Marathon to the lighting of the Christmas tree to the Pride Parade. Our thinking changed after the Pulse nightclub attack. The Pulse nightclub attack, in terms of loss of life, was the worst attack on U.S. soil since 9/11 when it occurred. We really had to re-examine the target set there. We had to re-examine our thinking about the Pride Parade. We had to turn up the layers of protection we added, and that wasn't immediately popular. We moved more long gun teams in around the route, more blocker cars and heavy vehicles along the route to make sure vehicles couldn't get in for ramming attacks. We had more vapor wake explosive detection dogs, and we got some feedback, you know, that many people found comfort with the police. We saw a lot of people coming up to thank them for being there. We thought it was going great, but we got other feedback. They felt it was sometimes scary looking. They felt the event was being over-policed. So what I wanted to do this year, since that threat on the counterterrorism side has only been enhanced with a richer picture we're starting to see of an emerging and increasing threat from right-wing extremists that will also target the LGBTQ community, is to kind of give you a window into how we see the threat, how we assess the threat, what we base these judgments on, so that when you see these resources out there, you know they're there for safety. You know they're there for a reason. You know what the thinking is behind it, and you know it's there for you. So Ravi Satkami is the Deputy Director for Intelligence Analysis at the NYPD. He works with a great team of young, very smart analysts who kind of live in that threat stream. They monitor it constantly. They look at it all the time. They are constantly assessing and judging what the threat is. And what we wanted to do this time, because this is a first for us, this gathering with the LGBT community in this context, is share the same kind of information we share with the Jewish community in the pre-Passover briefing, the same kind of information we share with the Muslim community in the pre-Ramadan briefing, where we go through how we're seeing the threat through our lens, and we ask people to be part of the team. If you see something, say something, to be aware, to know what to do, to use the resources that are along the route, but also in this particular context, to understand why they're there and that they're there for you. So Ravi, he's been working on this for some time. It's a very impressive brief, and we're happy to share it with you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to bring this down because it's in my face. We'll just get started. So, I am the Deputy Director of Intelligence Analysis here at the NYPD, but more importantly today, I'm also a proud member of the LGBTQ community. So I take... Thank you. So it's been a particular privilege today when I was asked to address all of you to walk you through what it is that we are seeing on a day-to-day basis in terms of the terrorism threat that's being presented to us and how we are going about trying to counter that. So what we're going to do is just walk you through a couple of key points through this presentation. One, I'm going to give you an overview of what the global threat looks like. We're going to pivot and talk a little bit about the propaganda that is driving that threat, and then end with talking about how that propaganda and how that threat manifests in targeting the LGBTQ community. So you know in the past couple of months we've had some pretty high-profile attacks. You'll remember back in March in Christchurch, New Zealand, an individual named Brenton Tarrant targeted 2 mosques in New Zealand, killing 51, injuring another 49, using a number of semi-automatic weapons. He had posted online what his manifesto was, which was a screed, a white supremacist screed, and as well as live stream this on Facebook. That was game-changing. April of this year, if you remember, we saw a vicious attack in the island nation of Sri Lanka conducted by what we're assessing is a local group, but claimed by the Islamic State. In this attack, which was coordinated, used suicide bombers, and attacked a number of hotels and churches during Easter Mass. The result was over 260 people killed and hundreds more wounded. This was probably the most successful, attack that the Islamic State has claimed credit for outside of Iraq and Syria. So if you're thinking that the pace of these attacks is getting more frequent or the lethality is increasing, you're not wrong. What I've pulled here is a graphic from The Economist that I think is a great visualization of what it is we've been seeing over the past few years. What you see is a comparison of deaths in Western countries at the hand of terrorist acts, both on the jihadist front and the right-wing front. You'll see the number increase after 2010 pretty significantly in both spectrums. And a lot of this we assess is driven by the development of something that we're calling the lone wolf attack or the homegrown violent extremist. What that means, these are individuals that radicalize by themselves, plan by themselves, and largely execute an attack by themselves without having to check into some kind of central cell or terrorist mothership. That trend is something that we have also seen locally. So if we look at 2009 as an inflection point here in New York City, we count one lone wolf plot in the city prior to that year. Since that year, we count 15. So that gives you a sense of where we are in terms of the threat picture. So the question becomes, what is driving this threat? And the answer, a lot of it is propaganda. Propaganda about why you should hate people, who you should target, and how you should target them. Initially, this started on the platforms that we are all familiar with, right? So Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. They more recently have become aggressive about taking down content that violates their terms that they find to be extremist or encouraging violence. The caveat to this is they've been much more successful at doing this with the Islamic extremist threat than they have been with the white supremacist threat. There are many of issues with that, or many reasons for that. I'm not going to get into that here. But the takeaway from that is that as these guys have been cracking down, the extremists are moving to other platforms. So on the white supremacist front, we're seeing them use platforms like Gab, Discord, and 8chan. In fact, Brenton Tarrant in New Zealand posted was on 8chan before the attack. For the Islamic extremist threat, we see them using apps like Telegram and Rocket Chat and Viber. The takeaway here is that for the most part, these are all benign. They're out there for everybody to use. The one exception to that, or the two exceptions to that, may be Gab and 8chan. They advertise themselves as being unwilling to police their platforms for this kind of speech, and therefore have attracted or made themselves attracted to the white supremacist community. So let's take a look at what the propaganda that is actually being pushed out looks like. So what you're seeing here are images put together by some white supremacist groups. The one on the middle and the two on the left come from a group called the Atomwaffen Division. This is probably one of the most violent white supremacist organizations that we know of. It is responsible for 5 homicides over the past couple of years in the United States. Its mission is to bring down the current system of government and replace it with one that is to their liking by fomenting what they are calling a race war. They are joined in that mission by another organization called the Base. You'll see their image on the right side. Their mission is to act as an umbrella organization, to pull together a lot of the white supremacist organizations that exist out there, and there are a number, into one unified mission, which is systemic change. One of the things that you should keep your eye out for or be aware of is these numbers that seem innocuous but actually are not. The 14 refers to what is a white supremacist credo. The 14 words: we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. The 88 is short for Hail Hitler, the H being the 8th letter of the alphabet. And you'll see when we look at, for example, the assault rifle that was used in New Zealand, the scope has the number 14 on there, along with a bunch of other tributes to other white supremacists. That is what that number means. I'm going to shift to the next slide and show you a video. So it's not just stills that they're showing, but they're showing actual video. What I'm going to show you, it's going to start loud. It's got gunshots in it, so I'm just preparing you for that. I'll talk you through what it is that we're watching. This is a compilation of an Atomwaffen Division hate camp exercise. These guys are training assault rifles and shotguns. You'll see the Atomwaffen patch on their shoulder. I'm sorry about the music. I did not score this piece. You'll see them engaging, it's hard to see here, but some night combat moves. And what they do at the end is kind of shift to make it clear who their target set actually is. The Jews. If you can't see it, that is the flag of Israel. The flag of the United Nations representing the international order that they do not like. And of course, our pride flag. So there's no question that the community is in the target set. All of this is fairly flashy, and the white supremacist groups have really pushed on this in the channels that I had spoken to you about. But the groups that really push propaganda to the next level were the Islamic extremist organizations, starting way back in 2010 with Al-Qaeda. What you're looking at here is the first real impactful English language jihadist magazine called Inspire, and put together, by the way, with the help from a kid from Queens. In it was this seminal article on the right-hand side, Make a Bomb in the Kitchen of Your Mom. What it is it is a recipe for putting together explosive devices. And we know they are viable because a number of terrorists that have been arrested have used this as their guide, not only nationally, but here locally in New York City as well. ISIS took this to another level. Here are their magazines. One of them on the left-hand side is called Dabiq, the one on the right is called Rumiyah. What they use their propaganda for is to weaponize everyday items. So what you're looking at on the right side is instruction on how to weaponize a vehicle, a truck. And it tells you exactly what kind of truck to get. It tells you where to get that truck. And again, it tells you who to target. And you can't see it from where you're sitting, but number one on that list, if I blow it up for you, is a Pride event. So again, the targeting is very clear. But we shouldn't be surprised that the Islamic State and its followers would be targeting our community. This is an organization that is known for executing suspected homosexuals in their territory by pushing them off of roofs of buildings. If they survive the fall, they will then stone them to death. And it's not only because they feel that homosexuality is antithetical to Islam, but they are viewing the progress of LGBTQ rights in the West as threatening to themselves as well. And that's what's illustrated in this quote here. But the real intersection that everybody knows about ISIS, its brutality, and the LGBTQ community really came together in June of 2016 at the Pulse nightclub. Now, I don't have to replay these events for you. I think it was all very clear for you. I remember exactly where I was. I was with my partner, Anthony, in Provincetown. We were celebrating Pride Month. My phone starts lighting up with the alerts that are coming across and the updates, and I'm back on the phone with my office down here in New York, making sure we are getting the information down to our partners in Orlando that they need to understand what is going on. And I'm sure you remember the news coverage of this event. But what I am fairly certain you do not remember, or have not seen, I should say, is how ISIS covered this same event. So what I'm going to show you is a couple of excerpts from clips that ISIS put together on how they used this event to further push their propaganda along. What I want you to note here is the high production value of this video. And this is trademark for ISIS at the heyday of its media production. And it's one of the reasons it was so successful in recruiting so many people to join its cause. Here they are, here's Omar Mateen, the assailant. This is them lionizing him, right? Again, lone wolf, no real connection to ISIS, radicalized online, acted online, or acted by himself.
تكون المعارك لأجل دمارك حسام الثرى مشينا بسهر لجز ونحر بسكين ثأر.
It's just after 2 a.m. on Sunday morning when the first shots rang out at the Pulse nightclub.
Today marks the most deadly shooting in American history.
It's been reported that Mateen made calls to 911 this morning in which he stated his allegiance to the leader of the Islamic State.
This video continues for another 5 minutes in which a litany of grievances against the West is laid out as justifications for the attack at Pulse. Since Pulse, we've continued to see threats against the LGBTQ community. In 2018 in Paris, the police arrested 2 individuals with explosive devices and knives who were looking to target gay clubs there in the name of the Islamic State. That was after they stopped a similar plot the year before. Just in April of this year, the FBI arrested this individual on the right, Fabjan Alamedi, in Montana. He was looking first to join ISIS and then to conduct a revenge attack for New Zealand by picking up an assault rifle and targeting many individuals, but specifically he had mentioned gay clubs. More locally, if you remember, in September of 2016, we had a successful bombing here in New York City on 23rd Street. The individual who pulled this off, Ahmed Rahimi, essentially placed 2 devices, one here on 23rd, one on 27th. Only the 23rd Street device went off. The key point here is that device that caused all that damage was put together using the instructions in Inspire magazine that I had just shown you a couple of slides before. We were lucky that we did not have any deaths, but we had several dozen wounded. Of course, Chelsea is a historic community for the LGBTQ community, so it is noteworthy that that was where these were placed. The year after, we saw the targeting of the West Side Highway by an individual named Saipov. What he did is rent a truck from the Home Depot in New Jersey, go to another Home Depot, buy a knife, because he thought doing both at the same Home Depot would raise alarm bells, and drove down the West Side Highway mowing the people that he saw on the bicycle path and the pedestrian path, killing 8 and wounding 12. This was on Halloween of 2017 and had proximity both in space and in time to the Halloween parade that is such a popular event for our community. On the right-wing side, we saw in January 2018, this individual, Samuel Woodward, kill Blaze Bernstein by stabbing him 20 times in the face. It's one of the homicides that I referred to when I talked about the Adam Waffen being responsible for division being responsible for 5 homicides. He is charged with hate crime specifically because the prosecutors believe that his primary motivation was his victim's sexuality. And in the UK, in 2017, we had Ethan Stables be arrested right before he was able to carry out a machete attack on a pride event at a British pub. What's interesting about Ethan Stables is he later claimed that he was bisexual, which is a reminder that sometimes these threats can come from within. And this is the last point that I want to make. Not only are we being targeted for violence, but we're also being targeted for a level of appropriation of icons that are important to our community. This is something that's happening in the white supremacist side. The rainbow flag, which has come to signify so much for us, is now being turned from a symbol of diversity, of celebration, into a symbol of hate, of segregation. And you'll see this is being done online in the same channels that I spoke to you about earlier, and you'll see on the bottom right that 1488 that I spoke to you about before. So what I want to do is kind of sum this all up for you as you walk away. If you're going to walk away with a couple of points, what are those points going to be? One, you know this. There are a number of organizations out there that are targeting us. Two, a lot of that direction, a lot of the instruction on how to target is being conducted online. And three, what we are seeing is a lot of fairly low-tech tactics that are no less lethal. That said, I don't want you to leave here scared, and what I want to tell you is we do not see, at this moment, a specific or credible threat to Pride celebrations. But we do need a level of vigilance from everybody that's out there, whether it's during Pride or year-round. And so these are contacts that you should keep in mind. The 1888 NYC safe number is a number everybody should know. This is the see something, say something number. You call that number, it's going to ring in my office. Not my literal desk, but the office that I work in. And also your neighborhood coordination officers. Like these individuals have several jobs, but one of their jobs is to make sure that they are hearing the concerns from the community. Again, this is something that you should keep in the back of your mind, not only as we celebrate Pride this month, but also year-round. So I'm going to end there, and I just want to say Happy Pride, everybody. It's going to be a great time. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Director. Please welcome the Commanding Officer of the Hate Crime Task Force, Deputy Inspector Mark Molinari.
Thank you and good afternoon. Everybody has the right to identity safety. Everyone has the right to walk down the street feeling comfortable in who they are and the identity that they project. But how does New York City government protect that right? We have a dedicated NYPD unit, the Hate Crime Task Force. December 31st of 2020, next year, will be the 40-year anniversary of an NYPD hate crime unit. We are the largest in the country, we are the second oldest, and we are one of half a dozen law enforcement agencies that have a dedicated hate crime unit investigating just hate crimes. 99% of the work of the Hate Crime Task Force is investigating post-incident actions. You heard Commissioner Miller and Ravi speak about what they're doing on the prevention end, on the monitoring end. My unit goes out after there's an unfortunate event to do the investigation and make an apprehension. That other 1% is myself and my executive officer, Captain Tim Hollywood, who get to do meetings, presentations such as this, and trainings to the police academy and supervisory staff. We do outreach along with many NYPD units, Intel and Counterterrorism, the PC's Office Liaison Unit, Community Affairs Bureau, Crime Prevention, School Safety. We work with city agencies, the Mayor's Office, the City Council, the Commission for Human Rights, and of course the DA's offices in every borough. We work with our state partners in the New York State Police and occasionally the New Jersey State Police, and we work with our federal partners in the Department of Justice and the FBI. We also have a special NYPD response process. It's in the department manual that every officer reads and studies and supervisors read and study. It dictates in one of these that hate crimes is one of the few occurrences that an executive must be involved in the early stages and investigation of a hate crime. A precinct commanding officer, executive officer, or borough staff. The NYPD takes this so seriously that we want to make sure an executive level person is involved in the early stages of this, and that person must respond to me in my office. And we also have a special statute in the New York State Penal Law. Roughly spells out what a hate crime is in the slide. An unlawful act that's motivated in whole or substantial part by a person's, group's, or place's identification with a particular race, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, sexual orientation, disability, gender, or age. To sum that up, a hate crime is criminality motivated by the identity of the victim. Earlier this year, Governor Cuomo signed into law the Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act, GENDA. And it states that a person's actual or perceived gender-related identity, appearance, behavior, expression, or other gender-related characteristics, regardless of the sex assigned to that person at birth, including but not limited to the status of being transgender. The Act expands New York State's hate crime law to include crimes against transgender and gender non-conforming people. This extension to the hate crime law helps to calm community of fears that they are not being protected, that they are marginalized and not considered by the law. In my experience with the NYPD and the Hate Crime Task Force, we have always protected all identities and all sexual orientations. I get to train supervisory officers and executive staff at the NYPD, and I asked them very clearly in that training, if you were investigating a hate crime in the early stages, do you ask the victim why they feel like being Jewish, why they feel like being Muslim, why they feel like wearing traditional garb? No. So why on earth would you ask somebody why they feel like being gay, why they feel like being transgender? In this gender expansion, New York State has finally caught up with the policies of the NYPD. Looking at hate crimes over the past few years, we see the rise in them. If you look back 20, 25 years in hate crime statistics, they always ebb and flow between 275 and 425. Here we see how they've gone up to last year's 361 number. Looking at that number broken down, we see the increase of 361 to 338. Last year, anti-gender crimes dropped to 7 from the previous year of 14, and anti-sexual orientation crimes increased slightly from 45 from 43. We also see here about our arrests. Our arrests in the unit declined slightly. Our anti-gender arrests increased slightly, and our anti-sexual orientation decreased greatly. That 37 number of arrests for the anti-sexual orientation crimes last year is average to what we do over the years. The 61 is not average. In 2017, we had a pattern in Queens of 6 different cases in the pattern of 20 different locations being vandalized with anti-sexual orientation graffiti, and we were happy to make an arrest on that with the help of the Queens personnel and charge that person with 20 crimes. Looking at this year, we see that as of today's briefing, total hate crime cases 184 versus 112. Our anti-gender cases are up slightly, 4 versus 3, and our anti-sexual orientation cases are up 18 versus 14. Our total arrests are up for the year. Our total arrests in anti-gender are up for the year, and our total arrests in anti-sexual orientation are down slightly. What I do want to point out in this, in this slide is the classification of those crimes, why I put the anti-gender and anti-sexual orientation categories up there. They are 2 separate categories covered under the law. Approximately 6 months after my assignment to this unit 2 years ago, I was doing a presentation for the Queens Borough President's liaison group. and somebody in the crowd who's an advocate in the LGBTQ community out in Far Rockaway and works on this advisory board noted that the anti-gender crimes were very low. And he asked me, your anti-gender crimes are very low. Where do you keep your transgender crimes? And I said, right there in sexual orientation. I told him I would fix it the next day, and I sat down with my chief and I explained the oversight and the error, and we fixed our numbers that day. So when you see an anti-gender crime listed there, that is a crime against the transgender community. As the commissioner said, we're not perfect, but we are working very hard to get better and better every single day. So when we see that increase in year-to-date, we could break it down monthly. I showed you that number, 361 hate crimes for the last year and floating around 330 to 340 for the years before that. Averages out to one a day. Well, we see by this chart that some months were close to average, below average, but some months were over average. The happy news that I have to report is that today is June 6th, and as of right now, we have 3 reported hate crimes for June, putting us below average for right now. I want to share with you our contact information. That is our office phone number. It should not be used as a reporting line. The best reporting line is always 911 or 311. Or, thanks to Commissioner O'Neill, thanks to Deputy Commissioner Walzak from Public Information, and thanks to Chief Shea, Chief of Detectives, about 6 months ago we started an NYPD Twitter page, at NYPD Hate Crimes on Twitter. This is also not a reporting mechanism, but this is to keep the community aware of crimes that are going on, stats, hunts for perpetrators, and hopefully the apprehension of those perpetrators. If you sign onto that page today, you will see that the attack that happened, the incident that happened up in Harlem in front of the Alibi Lounge, of burning of pride flags last week, that is actively being investigated by the NYPD Hate Crime Task Force. Tuesday night around 11 p.m. we obtained video of the perpetrator doing the act and walking away from the scene. Within an hour, that was on our Twitter page to alert the community and let everybody know this is who we are looking for. Chief Monahan mentioned in the video that was shown of him, instructing, asking the members of the NYPD to say hello to the community. Well, I'm going to leave you with some homework today. When you see a cop out there during Pride Month, Pride Week, Pride Weekend, Pride Parade, walk over and say hello. They're going to be sweating, in a dark uniform, with a bulletproof vest and a gun belt, but walk over and say hello. If you want to, say thank you. You will see me out there that whole weekend. Walk over to me and say thank you. The Commissioner mentioned this police-community partnership. This is not a 40-40, it's not a 50-50 partnership, it's a 100-100 partnership. And we cannot have that 100-100 partnership if any member of any community is afraid to talk to a cop. Please say hello. Please enjoy Pride Weekend, Pride Parade, Pride Week, Pride Month, and continue that pride all 12 months of the year. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Inspector Molinari. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Executive Officer of the Community Affairs Bureau, Assistant Chief Kim Royster.
Good afternoon, Commissioner O'Neill, executive staff, and all of our invited guests. I bring you greetings from Chief Hoffman, who is the Chief of Community Affairs, but was unable to be here today. But we wanted you to know that we are delighted to be part of the first LGBTQ Pride Month Community Safety Briefing. During the month of June, there will be some monumental events that will take place in our great city, and the New York City Police Department will be ready to host them all. The NYPD has adopted neighborhood policing as a comprehensive strategy designed to reduce crime, promote trust and respect, and solve problems collectively. The role of the Community Affairs Bureau is to foster productive partnerships between the police and the communities we serve. The Community Affairs Bureau has a holistic approach in outreach. We engage the 8.5 million residents, 55 million tourists, which will increase during Pride Month, 1.2 million students, and over 5.5 million commuters that take our transit system every day. The Community Affairs Bureau LGBTQ Outreach Unit has been in existence since 2003. Our LGBT unit is to foster meaningful relationships with our LGBTQ community and collaborate with elected officials, city agencies, all of our communities, and advocacy organizations in all of our boroughs. Our outreach unit also collaborates with the NYPD patrol precincts, our neighborhood coordination officers, and our community affairs officers in our transit and housing districts, as well as our specialized units, which you heard from today, as our hate crimes task force. We look at concerns and we provide the LGBTQ advocacy assistance while also educating the community on police-related topics of concern. Additionally, the LGBTQ Outreach Unit works to keep the NYPD informed of laws, executive orders, and internal policies and procedures. I want to take the liberty of acknowledging the 2 officers that we have in the LGBTQ unit that work tirelessly year after year in making sure our LGBTQ community is aware and engaged at all times. They are Sergeant Michelle Martindale. Yes. And her partner, Aaron Ayala. But let's not forget that this cannot be done without the assistance of Brian Downey. And, while he's still standing, Detective Carl Locke from the Police Commissioner's Liaison Unit. The Community Affairs Bureau is committed to diversity and inclusivity. We are also laser focused on making sure all of our communities remain safe, especially our LGBTQ community. I want to take the opportunity to thank you and to say, have a great Pride Month.
And thank you so much, Chief Royster. It is now my pleasure to introduce the NYPD's Chief of Patrol, Rodney Harrison.
So good afternoon. Welcome to Wynn Police Plaza. So every year around this time, the NYPD, we finalize our plans for the annual Pride March. But this year we know it's going to be different. And we're making several important milestones. With the 50th anniversary of Stonewall and the hosting of the first ever World Pride in the U.S., there's a potential for thousands and maybe millions of additional visitors to visit New York all over the world. And with the events going on across the city throughout the month of June, there will be a robust NYPD presence to keep all the attendees and all the city's guests safe. We'll have officers from across our department deployed where they're needed the most to ensure a safe and enjoyable time for everyone. But as always, we can't do it alone. And we need all of you to let us know about your concerns. Whether it's one of the dozens World Peace events, World Pride events, or a general concern you have for your safety or the safety of your loved ones. 911 should always be your first call if there's an immediate threat. But for other concerns, your easiest way to talk to us is to reach out to your neighborhood coordination officer. Every single resident has an NCO assigned to them to work together to identify issues before they become problems. Every part of the city has one, and you can find their contact information through emails, phone numbers, or on our websites like Build a Block or other precinct social media sites. You can also reach our Community Affairs Bureau or our Community Affairs officers, like the great men and women in the back with the blue shirts on, who work in every precinct. Or you can talk to any of the officers you see on the streets every single day. And if you don't get the help you require, you need to let us know. More than anything, this month's festivities are a celebration of how much our city has changed in the last 50 years, and how much more welcoming we are to the diversity of New York City. And I can tell you, the NYPD, we've also changed. Many of those officers who will be protecting Pride Month are also members of the LGBTQ community themselves. Our diversity is one of our greatest strengths in the NYPD, as is our commitment to safety for everyone and the persistence in seeking justice. So thank you, and I look forward to working with all of you to ensure a secure Memorial, Pride Month, and World Pride. Enjoy your day.
And thank you, Chief Harrison. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our briefing. On behalf of the Police Commissioner, I want to thank you all for attending. Now please grab a plate, pull up a chair, and join the NYPD for some lunch. Thank you.